Hi there, Northumberland. I'm Jan Spragge, and you're listening to the Jan Spragge Show. I have the pleasure of Brenda Corey Dunne joining me today. I'm really looking forward to talking to Brenda because it's a subject that I think is important for all Canadians. We're going to be talking about a book of hers that centers around the military. Brenda Corey Dunne grew up in rural New Brunswick, Canada. She originally trained as a physiotherapist and worked several years as an officer in the Royal Canadian Air Force before meeting the love of her life and taking her release. Since that time, she's ridden the RCAF posting train with her Air Force husband and family, living in such places as Nova Scotia, Watchfield in England, and Elizabeth City in North Carolina. She currently calls Vancouver Island home. It really is a pleasure to chat with her. Thanks for joining us today on Northumberland 89.7, Brenda.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to chat with you about a subject that even here in Northumberland is really important because we have, of course, the Trenton Air Force Base here. And so we have a lot of people who are retired military and current military. So it's really nice that you took the time to share your journey as a part of the military with us and also your stories and tell us in a little bit what it's like for us who are not a part of the military. So thanks.
Well, it's definitely my pleasure, and I'm thrilled to be chatting with you, Jan.
Good. Well, and you have connections here to Northumberland as well.
I certainly do. I'm married. He was born in the States, but he lived in Port Hope for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And I believe you know him as well.
I sure do. Yeah, Tom and I went to school together, so it's particularly nice to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, well, we haven't had a chance to chat beforehand, but it's been nice chatting with you online for sure. And I heard about Pony Club days from my husband.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Certainly grew up riding horses together. And you've spent some time in this area, and I guess you've had some business experience in this area as well.
I did. My day job is as a physiotherapist, as you mentioned earlier, and I was fortunate enough to help open a physiotherapy clinic in Brighton. So we lived in Brighton for 3 years during our posting train, and it was a really lovely place to live, and it was nice for me because I could work right in my little hometown, and so I made some very good friends. Hopefully some of them are listening to you today, and it's a lovely place, so hope to get back again sometime soon.
Yeah, well, that's great. How did you make the jump from physiotherapist to writer?
Well, it's funny. It started out when we were posted in England, and of course, living in England, it's magic everywhere, and it just felt like the right thing to do. I wasn't working as a physiotherapist at the time, just because we were only there a year, and we had children that were young and avid readers, and I just thought, well, it would be kind of cool to write something while we were there that they could read. So I started to put pen to paper and just played around with it a little bit, and within a few months I had written my first full-length manuscript. So unfortunately that one's been shelved because I think I did everything wrong that you could have. But it was the start of something bigger. It's a great side career in that you can do it everywhere too. You don't necessarily have to be in a certain place to write, and hopefully it will become something more so that I can work into just being a writer and not doing both. They're quite different careers.
Yes, they must be. And you've certainly, in your latest book, Dependent, used this as a tool to be able to share with the world some of your thoughts on the military lifestyle. So it must be a fantastic way to have a voice.
Yes, it definitely is. I started writing Dependent. I think it was just one of those things where I just needed to put some of my thoughts down on paper, and I wrote probably 20 or 30 pages and left it, and that was it. And that was almost 10 years ago. So I think I'd come to the conclusion that it was, we'd been posted many, many times, and my children were really little, so it was difficult to work And at the time, we had moved back to Nova Scotia, and I was not able to get my physiotherapy license because I hadn't been working enough in the past 5 years. So I kind of came down to it was either write my national board exams 13 years after university or let it all go. And that was a really difficult decision, and I kind of looked at, well, what would happen if, and something were to happen, unfortunately, to Tom, or, God forbid. And so I sat down and put my thoughts on paper then and just left it because it was too painful to even consider. So after I'd written this first full-length manuscript, and I sat down one day, Tom was actually deployed at the time, and started to work on it. And so I drew from all of my different experiences as a military spouse, but it's still fiction. It's not something that's happened to me, thank goodness. But there are many, many different things that can happen, and I kind of threw it all at my main character, Ellen, and figured out how she would react. So I tried to be very honest as to what military spouses go through, and I think because of that, sometimes the people that are reading it, I think they either love it or hate it because it's very in your face. It's not a happy book, unfortunately.
It sounds like a beautiful exploration, a beautiful gift that you gave yourself, though, through that, like I say, ability to explore the what-ifs. And it's nice that you're transparent about that, because I would think that it gives would-be writers or writers a thought on how they might explore things in their own world.
Yeah, well, I think there's the more true to, experiences and more honesty that you put down on paper, and, you kind of deal with the fears and deal with the things and the emotions that, rule your life. If you put that down on paper, it comes back more honestly. And I think because of that, it was my first book that was picked up by a traditional publisher, and has had much more wide distribution across Canada and across the world as well. I have contacts in different countries. So I think it's one of those things that it just makes you think. And I'm sure when you look at literary fiction and any fiction right now, often the books that are the more popular stories are the ones that have some sort of an emotional connection that really make you think. And Dependent does that, I hope, anyway.
Interesting commentary about our culture right now, or what we need as humans and individuals moving through it to perhaps need that emotional connection. That's an interesting wave.
Yeah, it's funny, though, because I tend to read, I think it's because of the lifestyle that I lead, and, there's a lot of reality here, and a lot of things that are happening around me. I tend to read more entertaining reads, light, fluffy, beach reads and those sort of things. And I wouldn't normally pick up a book like Dependent, but when, it got right down to it, it's probably my best work so far. It's one of those things where you really need to get deep into those emotions in order to make it count on paper.
Nicely said. And I would think it could be a Bible of sorts for women and perhaps men as well who are entering the military to have an understanding of especially what it's like to be a spouse.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of new military spouses, you can't really know what you're getting into until you're living it. And, spoken personally as well. I was a military officer. I wore the uniform. I went to work every day on the base and married a military fellow. And, you don't realize until you're living it how all-encompassing the military lifestyle is. It's a very, very demanding lifestyle. You're moving all the time, and, you're often far, far away. I mean, my family is in New Brunswick, so everyone that I'm personally related to all live in New Brunswick pretty much, and that's 5,000 kilometers away from where I'm living now. So you can't really understand until you're there what you're going to get into. And I'm sure that there's, again, speaking from my own personal point of view, I'm sure that if I read Dependent as a young military spouse, I would think, oh, that's never going to happen to me, and, none of those things will exist in my life. But in reality, I have lived through some of these things, and I've experienced a lot of it. And if I haven't, I've known people who have. So I've actually had some conversations with the chaplain of the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force, just about these kind of things. How it would be nice if people could read this book before they entered into the military lifestyle. It's kind of everything bad that can happen, but it's eye-opening if you've got the rose-colored glasses on before you enter into a marriage with a military member. So,
yes,
I agree totally.
Yeah, and as you say, there's so many parts of the military lifestyle that can also be so rewarding. It's a special place unto itself. And just having a very, very little experience myself, my late husband being a Marine in the United States, and so just a little bit of experience in that way and being involved with a military family. But certainly there are a lot of strengths that are, I think, particularly unique in the military lifestyle and families.
Definitely. One of the nice things about the military is you do make very, very strong friendships because you are, subjected to these other factors, the moves and, the difficulties finding jobs in your new places and young children. And you tend to connect with people in ways that you wouldn't normally. You also have to. One of the things that I've noticed is when we move, you end up having to trust people that you don't know right away. You don't have any family, you don't have any close friends right next by, and because of that, you tend to meet people that you wouldn't normally meet. And I've been so fortunate to make very, very strong friendships with people all over the world that I wouldn't normally have met, and we still keep in contact, and you never really say goodbye in the military because you're always going to run into them again at the least expected times, and also they're very supportive. We have the military, especially in Canada, we have many systems in place to help support spouses of military members. We have our military family resource centers. We have one of the things that I've recently gotten involved in is the military wives choirs. We have all kinds of connections now, and it's getting better and better every year. I've been married for almost 20 years now, so I know what it was like 20 years ago, and it's better now than it was. There's still difficulties, but I just find military spouses are very, very strong. Sometimes they don't realize it, but they are. They're so strong, and I tried to reflect that in the book as well, that the main character, Ellen, doesn't realize how strong she is until, she reaches the bottom, and then she realizes that she's put up with all of this stuff all along, and it's made her very, very strong. Kind of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So she's very strong, and many of the people that I've met, and especially women, and I'll say that because statistically it still tends to be more females that are non-military spouses married to the military member. They're just amazing people, and they have so much to offer, and I've been very, very fortunate to meet so many.
And I would think sometimes perhaps they really don't know, because they're strong, it might be that they don't reach out for the support the same way, even if it's available to them.
And that's very true, very true, that, oftentimes there's so strong. They're very proud and very, I can do this. They're very independent almost. And so they often, don't want to go to the MFRC, the Military Family Resource Center, to access this support. And I can speak to that one myself, that often, the support was there, and I knew it was there, and that was comforting to know it, but I wouldn't access it unless I absolutely had to. And that's, I think, an inherent problem with, just the whole idea of trying to provide support. And it's not that the support's not there, it's not that it's not available, it's that often there's kind of a stigma attached with accessing it. And again, it's improved, there's so much more out there, but it's still difficult. And they are very proud. Again, I'm stereotyping, but they're very, very proud people, and they want to be seen as strong, and so they often won't access that. But there are many connections outside of the military as well, whether it be book clubs or different local community things that they can go into as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would think, as you've said in the past, I think you've moved 12 times with the military, 10 of which since you and Tom have been married, and which is quite tremendous. And it strikes me, Brenda, that you've really maintained a sense of self through that. That must be unique, I would think, in the military experience.
It's very hard. You have to fight and it's a hard fight to maintain it. When you move, like most women and men, their sense of self comes from what they do, whether it be their career or whether they're a stay-at-home mom, or that all kind of makes up who they are. And with the military, we move, every 2 to 3 years, sometimes sooner. I've had 2 different 1-year postings. And so you can't build up a career in that case unless you have something that, you can do from home. And luckily the internet has helped that. But I know of a lot of spouses who've moved from an executive level job and who have ended up working at retail because not that that's a bad thing, but that it's very disheartening to someone who was the executive director or the person in charge, and then they have to leave that job, and then they can't find a career expanding job in their next posting. So that's difficult. Plus your friends, again, your friends are part of who you are, and they can be on another continent sometimes. Makes it difficult. So it is a fight, and that was hopefully one of the central themes of Dependent, is that Ellen had allowed, not through any conscious thought, but she'd allowed her sense of self to be kind of overcome by the military and just, putting her head down and powering through, and she forgot who she was. In the book, she wants to be a nurse, and through a series of circumstances, she has to quit school and move with her hubby, and that falls apart. And when she finally realizes it, it's very, it's a cathartic moment for her. Wait a minute, I need to fight to become myself. And hopefully someone will read my book and see that that's really, really important. And there are times that, as I said, I wrote my national board exams 13 years after university with 3 preschool-aged children at home while we were building a house. So it wasn't an easy thing to do, but I knew that I had to do it or I would forever regret it.
Isn't that something? Yeah, and what a beautiful gift. It gives me shivers to give people perhaps that little nudge to remember who they are, Brenda. Truly a beautiful gift.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm hoping that that's what they get from it, that how important it is. And I'm, as you can tell in my conversation, I'm a huge supporter of military spouses and who they are. I've worked on the Military Family Resource Center Board of Directors before, and to me it's really important. And I know locally I'm known for starting things to get military spouses out and participate in things so that they can meet other people, because it is hard. Especially, you may not hear it in my voice, but I'm an introvert, and my happy comfort zone is staying at home and not going out. But you have to push that extroverted part of you to get out and do things. And hence, as I said, I helped start up a choir here that's all military spouses, an all-female choir, part of the Canadian Military Wives Choir system. And I've started book clubs, and I really want to support spouses so that they can get out and meet new people and help maintain that self of personal space or that sensation of personal worth, because they are very, very important. They really are the strengths behind the uniform.
They really are. Well, it's a pleasure chatting about it. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we are going to come back with Brenda Corey Dunne, and we're talking about the military lifestyle, the importance of that being married into the military, and what it's like. And her new book, Dependent, talks about a lot of these subjects. It is a novel, but it centers around a lot of that, which is important in the military. And I think it's a great read, not only for people in the military or people who are maybe loosely associated with the military, but for all of us, because I like to think as Canadians, one of the things we can do is support our military in different ways. So we'll be back in a few minutes just after this commercial with Brenda Corey Dunne here on Northumberland 89.7. There, Northumberland. This is Jan Spragge, and you're listening to the Jan Spragge Show. Today we have the pleasure of having on the line from Vancouver, BC, author Brenda Corey Dunne. Brenda has ties through her husband, Tom Dunne, to the Port Hope area here in Northumberland. I actually grew up with Tom, so it really is a pleasure to speak with Brenda today. And she's talking about a subject that I think is really important to all Canadians and abroad, and that is the military lifestyle, being married into the military or being a part of the military. Her new novel, Dependent, speaks to a lot of the issues and brings forth a lot of the things about what it's like to be connected with the military. So thanks again for joining us, Brenda.
Oh, it's certainly my pleasure.
Brenda, the title Dependent in the book, one of the first pages kind of talks about what dependent is. For those who may not know what that is, can you speak to that word for us?
Well, luckily they've changed the terminology nowadays. But back in the 80s, when I kind of signed up in the military, your dependent was someone who was part of your family unit, and whether it be a wife or husband or dependent child. It was included when you moved within the terms dependence, furniture, and effects, and so you were part of his, and I'm saying his because I'm married to a guy who's in the military. You were part of his DF&E, his dependence, furniture, and effects, and it kind of made you feel like a possession. So I use it kind of tongue-in-cheek because it's a term that I don't like, and most military spouses wouldn't, because you're not a possession. You're an individual who had a life before you married into the military. So that's where the title came from, and we still use it, but I think it's more. It's more of a term that we use just because it encompasses who we are. Well, not even who we are, but the term that the military used before. We are part of the military family unit that moves with the husband, or wife for that matter. So when I named the book, obviously there were other names that came up, and it started out as, actually it was called A Man at the Door at first, just because that's one of the things that we never want to experience. But dependent became much more, with all of its connotations, it became much more of an appropriate title.
Mm-hmm. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about the important it could be for people who are interested in becoming a military spouse to read this book. What would you most like to say if you could have coffee with someone who's sitting down and embarking on this lifestyle? What would be those most important things you would want to convey?
I think we've already touched on what I think is the most important thing, is to remember who you are right now. If you're looking forward to marrying into the military, remember that there are things that make you you now, and that it's really important to keep those things. And even if it's difficult to do, you need to fight to do that, because it is a very it's a very all-encompassing lifestyle. And if you lose that personality, that sense of self, it's really hard to get it back. So, yeah, I think that would probably be the most important thing, that, take a look at what you like to do, who you are, and I'm sure it's true in any marriage, but it's especially true in a military marriage, that you need to keep that. And if you like to, go bowling, then make sure you keep doing that. And if your job is, whether it's as a physiotherapist or as a journalist or whatever, it's important to try to maintain that, because you never know what's going to happen. And I think it's really important to fight for what you have. There's other things that I would recommend. One of the things that I've really noticed, and I tell my kids this every day, is that you only get one chance to make that friend. And often we'll move, and you'll move into a neighborhood, and people either look at you and smile, or they turn away because they know that you're new. And it's really important to force the issue and go right over and say, "Hi, my name's Brenda, and I'm new, and we're new neighbors, and I'm really looking forward to being there." And it's hard to do, but it's really important, because you can make life-lasting friendships. And you really only get a couple of, well, maybe a little bit more than one, but you don't get many chances to do that. So I think that's one, and as I've said before, I've made so many friendships. North Carolina, England, I've got friends in Australia, and just from putting myself out there. It's not an easy lifestyle, and I think newcomers to the lifestyle need to know that, but if you make the most of every posting, it can be very, very rewarding.
It strikes me as though the phrase sort of seizing the moment, I suppose, seems to be very important, because things do change very quickly.
Oh, definitely. As you said before, we've moved 10 times since we got married, and, my children have been, I think my son, who's in early years of high school, has been to, I think, 8 different schools now. And that's difficult, but we always present it as an adventure, because you're going to a new place. When we moved from Ottawa we're actually in the Comox area on Vancouver Island. When we moved here, before we even got that posting message, that piece of paper that said you will move, we were looking up things that you can do in the local area, places you can go, proximities of things, and I was really kind of pushing with my children and myself all of the wonderful things that you can do here. Yes, we're leaving people behind that we know and love and would like to keep in touch with and stay with, but Vancouver Island especially, really, I think it snowed once here this winter, and we had like plus 10 when it was minus 30 in Ontario. So we've been able to ski on the mountain that's very close by, and you can kayak and ski on the same day. There's so many things. So if you look at it as that adventure, you can't go wrong. You can live just about anywhere for 3 years and enjoy it if you push yourself. and we always have. We've been so fortunate. There's so much to do and see. So many places we can, say that we've been to that we wouldn't have been able to say that if we hadn't been a military family. Mm-hmm. And it really, one thing it does too is it really enriches children, and not only the spouse, but the children, in that they get a very global, wide view of what the world is like. Life doesn't end around the four walls of high school as much as many teens think. There's so much more beyond those walls, and it gives them that kind of broad understanding. So it is difficult to lose the friends, but there's many, many different things that are benefits.
Yeah, and like you say, you consider yourself an introvert, although no shrinking violet, to be sure, because to get out there, to seize the moment as a family, and I'm sure as a woman to spearhead a lot of that, making an assumption, but to say, hey, let's go out and look at this as an adventure, and to support Tom and your family in that way is a beautiful, beautiful thing. We're talking with Brenda Corey Dunne. She's an author, a Canadian author, today about her new book, Dependent. And so what are some of those things that you're looking into? I guess one of them is a choir that you're involved in and spearheading. What are some of the other things? And can you tell us a little bit about the choir?
Sure. I'd love to talk about the choir. I've sang in choirs all my life, and when we moved to Comox, I'd heard about the military wives choir movement in the UK, which is where it all kind of started. They're big news over in the UK. They actually have #1 singles out. So I'd heard about that, and the choir in Ottawa was just getting started when we were leaving Ottawa, and I was very sad about that because I wanted to take part in it. So when we moved to Comox, it's a very choral area. There's so much available here, but I thought it would be really neat to start up a local Canadian military wives choir. And so I looked into it, and I'm very glad I did, and I met up with our musical director, Wendy Nixon Stoster, and she's just fabulous. And so we, with the help from some other friends, we got it started. And it's a wonderful movement because it's just women. It's all-female choir, and they all have to either be spouses or have some direct connection to the military, whether they work on the base or are retired military or serving military themselves. So it's an all-female choir, and our #1 goal is not just to make music, which we do and do beautifully. It's the support. It's you walk in the door, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if it does matter who you are. It doesn't matter who your husband is, I think is a better way of putting it, because all rank and everything is left at the door, and it's just about singing and having fun, and we do social events, and it's just fabulous. I'm so glad that I got it started and helped others to start it as well. So it's we're the second, and I've heard rumors that there's a third Canadian military wives choir starting very soon in Alberta, and I'm hoping that the movement will spread across the country. So I know that the Ottawa choir has done some fabulous things. They've been singing at the Parliament buildings and Rideau Hall, and Sue, the one that started it there, is just fabulous to work with. So very fortunate. It's one of those things where you want to do something, and I'm also very fortunate in we haven't spoken about it, but my husband is actually the wing commander, the base commander here, and so I have a lot of connections through him that I have to admit I used to get the choir started. So and it helps, and I can do it now. Unfortunately, I won't be here forever, but I hope that I'll get something started that other people can participate in, and that it will enrich their lives, and they'll make new friends that they wouldn't normally have made.
Yes, I would think, especially in a society that can be, like you say, based on rank and other things, to bring people together in that way is beautiful, and to be a mentor for people around that must be a very enriching and important experience as well, Brenda.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm a mentor, but I just think it's so important that they have something that they can call their own, and I know how that can be a lifeline sometimes when you've got toddlers and newborns and you're at home, and it's one night that's your night, and you can get out and meet with people, and hopefully I've been successful so far. We're building, and I hope it continues to expand.
Yeah, well, it sounds like something, like you say, that there's a trend, and people seem to really be holding on to that, not only in the military but outside of the military too, which is nice. Nice way for people to support the military in a different way, like you say, by supporting their choirs and other activities.
Mm-hmm. Well, the local area has been very supportive. We've had support from some of the local Air Force associations, and lots of help, locally. And Comox is very nice in that way that it's a small town around a base, so you get a lot of that local connection here. Trenton is another very similar one where it's a large base, but there's a lot of support from the local community because a lot of military folk retire in that area, and so sometimes it's a little more difficult, to make connections in, say, Ottawa, for example. People tend to be more spread out. It's a big city, and the base itself is off by the airport, so you don't necessarily see military people every day. Whereas here, I can't help but run into people that I know because we shop in the same places and do the same sort of activities. So it's nice. Again, that's one of the perks when you move around a lot, is every once in a while you'll get posted to a place where you can do that. And I was very fortunate when we were in Trenton that I had my in-laws were very local, and my mother-in-law living in Port Hope, and she's a lovely lady and very close by. But when you're moving a lot, it's nice to move to these bases where they have these connections available.
We're talking with Brenda Corey Dunne, author of Dependent, which is her new novel. And speaking of support, for people that are loosely connected with the military, or, for us here in Northumberland, we're close to Trenton, and I've certainly, in talking to people through the years, there are people who want to be able to support, but don't really know how to do that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, just be a friend, obviously. If you know someone that is a military spouse or a military family that's just moved in, walk over and say hi. There's so many different charities nowadays that are out there to help military families and military spouses. But the Military Family Resource Center is kind of, right now, it's one of the key components of that, in that it's kind of the base of support. So feel free to walk in, and you can donate, whether it's time or energy or money. They are a charity run type organization, so they will take donations, and perhaps you have a service that you can offer, whether it's you teach stained glass courses or something like that. I know in the past, as a physiotherapist, one of the things that I did was I taught prenatal exercise classes at a very reduced rate for military spouses who are pregnant, and lots of different ways where if you have some sort of skill that you could offer it to, maybe you're a coach and you're good with kids. They're always looking for coaches for soccer teams and basketball teams and all of that locally, so many different ways there. But if you have a question, I know in Trenton particularly there is a very active Military Family Resource Center, and you can always call them and ask, and they're they know they know better than I would know all of the different organizations that support military families locally. So there's many different things that you can do, and the choir is another option. If there isn't one in Trenton now, I know, but there is one in Ottawa, and they definitely are active all throughout Eastern Ontario. So that's another option. If you have an extra few bucks that you want to donate to them, go listen to them and give them a few dollars. So there's many different things. And even the Military Family Resource Center is very accessible on the base in Trenton. I know it's right there on. I'm not sure the name they teach it since I was posted there, but it's right there, very accessible. So if you're looking for an idea, just call them or pop by.
That's very interesting. Military Family Resource Center. I'll see what I can find out and put it up on the show's Facebook page.
I'm pretty sure they have a Facebook page. I'm not sure. But definitely, they have a website. There is a website. You can just Google them, and I believe it's 8-Wing Military Family Resource Center.
Good to know. And I encourage people as well in Trenton to go to the museum.
Definitely.
It's a wonderful museum, and if people in the area have not had a chance to tour it, a wonderful history, and it gives a nice feeling of the military overall, I think, as well, at least speaking from someone outside of the military. It just is a nice walk. It's a great education for children, too, I feel, Brenda.
I know they have many different aircraft there, and I know my husband has flown some of not necessarily the specific aircraft, but the type that is there. And I believe they also have the cairn from the base Mirage. That was one of the bases that is now closed, but it's a memorial cairn with different plaques from the members who unfortunately were killed and came through Mirage when they were coming back to Canada. So it's a good place to remember as well. They're very good there and very approachable. You can pop in anytime and say hello.
They are, yeah. A lot of knowledgeable people walking around, and certainly a place that is well worth the drive to Trenton, and a nice way, once again, to support the military in a little bit different way. So, it's as you step forward in your journey, and like you say, at some point again, you'll be moving and doing new things. What are some of the ways that you're going to keep close to mind that maybe you even learned through your experience of riding dependent in order to hold on to yourself, support your family? What are some of those things that you hold dear as you step forward, Brenda?
Well, I do try to make time for myself, and like I said, with the choirs, I definitely writing is one of my passions now, and it's difficult with 3 very active teens and my husband's schedule as well, and my work schedule to carve out that time to sit down and write and move forward. I actually have 3 finished manuscripts that are in the hand of my literary agent, and one of them we're doing a little bit more editing on, but I'm hoping them soon. Lots of keeping up with the things I love to do. I love to sing. I love to write. I've been keeping up. I still work as a physiotherapist, albeit part-time. I work at a residential care home, which is kind of a nursing home, and I absolutely love it. The residents are just so great. You never know what's going to happen, and I work with a lot of residents who have dementia and or who are in the later stages of life, but it makes me happy to be there and to visit with them and hopefully make a difference in their lives. So I hope to keep working in that kind of environment. To me, I've worked in the private clinic environment as well, but there's something about residential care that just touches me, and I hope that someday I will have someone to look after me when the time comes, but I definitely keep up with that. But writing and enjoying family time, I know Tom, the military, is they have certain limits where, it's time to retire, and he's still enjoying his career. He's still doing very well, and supporting him is pretty important to me as well. But we'll keep moving. We're one of the unfortunate things about being here in Vancouver Island is we know it's a very short posting, and we'll be moving on again, actually not this summer but next summer, so I'm not sure where we're going. We'll find out when we find out. But enjoying the adventure. There's always something to do.
Well, it sounds like it, and you're making it an adventure, which is a lovely gift to you, to Tom, and to your family, and to others, obviously, because it just strikes me that you are a lovely example for other people, especially people new to the military, to understand a little bit about how to have a rich life within the military. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are thankful for that, who you might know, but also people who read Dependent. So how do people get a copy of Dependent, Brenda?
Well, you can get it through most of the online sellers as well as Chapters. Most small bookstores will have it as well, and if they don't, they can order it. I know you have some wonderful bookstores in the area, and it's available on both formats. I have a paperback as well as through the different e-readers, whether it be Kindle, Kobo, those sort of things, and also the library systems. If they don't have a copy, you should request it, but I know that there are many of the local library systems that have it as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, always good, the libraries, to have them. And we do have some very good independent bookstores locally, and that's another great place to go and ask that a few get on the shelves, definitely. So how do people reach you if they want to reach you personally? Do you have a website, a blog? What do people do to get in touch?
I do have a blog. You can reach me, Brenda Corey Dunne, with an E, done with an E, .blogspot.ca. That's that's where I hang out mostly. I also am on Facebook as Brenda Corey Dunne Author, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I think if you Google me, you will find me. I'm there. I'm fairly active on my blog. I try to post at least once a week. It's not necessarily always that way, but I have some posts on. I have a Military Monday feature where I post on different things that happen in our military lifestyle. So, you can find me there.
Oh, that's wonderful. It would, and it would certainly be nice to have you back on the show another time. I know that there's a lot of topics that I'd wanted to touch on today that we just didn't get a chance to do, and so it'd be nice to do that again if you would.
Certainly, anytime.
Good.
I would love that.
That's great. Good. And maybe sometime when you're in the area, if you're coming through, you could come in studio as well. And,
that would be fun too, yeah. Well, we do come to the Port Hope, Cobourg area as often as we can, I know, with
Sure.
family right there, and lots of friends as well. So.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice to be able to do that, and we appreciate you taking the time to share parts of your journey today, because like I say, whether listeners are involved in the military or loosely involved, it's nice to be able to have a greater understanding, I believe, for all Canadians, and not only in Canada, but around the world, that military experience, and very powerful to share it in interview as well as in your books. So thank you for doing so.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was definitely a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure too. I look forward to meeting you in person. I'll look forward to seeing Tom at some time soon, and meeting your children would be very nice.
Oh, well, thank you, Jan. I hope we can do that.
That's great. Oh, good. Well, thank you again, and do go and pick up a copy of Brenda's newest novel, Dependent. Brenda Corey Dunne, with an E, as Brenda said, and Dependent is the new name of her novel, and you can do so online, but I also encourage you, as Brenda did, to request a copy at our local libraries if it's not already on the shelves, and go to your independent bookseller. So thank you very much for listening today. I will go ahead and see what I can find out about Military Family Resource Center in Trenton, and I will post that information on our Facebook page so that you can find out a little bit more about how you can support some of our local military here in Northumberland. That Facebook page is facebook.com/Jan Spragge Show. Thank you very much for listening today, and I look forward to talking to you next time here at Northumberland 89.7.